The program started really with some work that we did in 2014 and 2015 around looking at what kinds of issues were important to the community. And our research team started hearing youth violence come up repeatedly. And so as we started talking to young people about youth violence, we started to hear their stories of the structural violence that they were experiencing. There was a middle school girl who was in my group. We were talking about, why are you angry? And she said, they don't teach us our history. And if we knew that we didn't come from slaves, that we came from kings and queens, we would have a very different idea of who we could be.
When people think of youth violence, they think of stabbings, they think of shootings, they think of physical abuse, they think of bullying. But racial profiling also is a form of youth violence. Concentrated poverty, food apartheid is a form of youth violence. Skewed education is a form of youth violence.
And so if we're going to get to reducing or eradicating the youth violence, then we've got to address the structural factors.
As an agency, what we do is we do a good job of listening.
It has been a process. There were lots of meetings. There was a lot of expertise and research in the room, and really just trying to come to a consensus about what it is that we're trying to say, to what audiences are we trying to say it, and what are the best mechanisms and venues to get the message out to the differing audiences.
And then I was able to go back and draft up what I thought was needed. There was 3 key elements that went into us designing a logo and a look and a feel, which was pride, peace, and prevention. That's what made it really interesting for us to come up with 3 phases of this logo. And each phase carried out a year in which we celebrated or we presented what that phase was. So the pride phase, it started out with who you are, where you come from, knowing that you come from kings and queens, and that you have, your lineages just start in the cotton field. Well, year 2 was our peace initiative portion of it. So we took advantage of the fact that we had a really up-and-coming recording artist that was part of our group, and he worked directly in the office, and he was able to bring a really bright and vibrant music version of what it is that we were doing.
You strategized because you had to make them dumb. They read books and you hung from a tree. You did that now all these years later. You gonna act like y'all afraid of me. But we still here. All this greatness that you stole, we taking it back.
We did music videos. We also did radio spots. And on top of that, we did social media. Well, getting into year 3 was very interesting because that was our prevention portion of what we were doing from a logo perspective and from a messaging perspective. And part of the prevention portion of that is that we wanted to show people what prevention was outside of what they thought it was. So we had an animated series, and it was all about our youth fellows being animated about prevention and what prevention means.
Sending more police rather than sending more resources, now that's violence. Being followed around the store simply because of your skin color, violence.
We try to make it engaging. We try to make it interesting. We want to have consumers go, what is that? And then when they see it, they go, I get it.
I don't honestly think that we could have done it with a different agency, both because of Bill's expertise, but also because of his understanding of the issues that we were trying to address.
It has to be meaningful, and it has to be meaningful for the consumer. It has to be meaningful for these young people that we're talking to. It has to be meaningful to my clients. It has to be meaningful for the community.
When you learn about your history, you feel proud about your history, and then you're gonna see other people who look like you, and you're gonna say, both of us should be proud of who we are. Why would we want to harm each other?
We have youth fellows who are at the same time learning and developing, and also being activists in their own right, in the ways that they have engaged in developing campaign content, in participating in campaign materials, in showing up at events and basically being the carriers of the message.
We're bringing awareness via kind of a youth development model of social justice youth development, where we are engaging them in critical conversations and dialogue about historic and contemporary issues that impact them today. And as they grow in their understanding, they're sharing with their peers.
In 2016, we had the opportunity to take our youth fellows to Washington, D.C. The dedication and opening of the Smithsonian Museum for African American History and Culture was being done. Being able to take them into a museum that celebrates their heritage and their history in a way that is authentic.
We also had the opportunity to take our youth to some other significant historical sites around the country.
One of the really impactful things that I got to witness was our young people crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge. They were walking where they knew that young people before them had walked fighting for the same thing. We got to meet people who were there on Bloody Sunday, getting to hear from them their experiences while our young people were standing there by the bridge in the same exact spot. That's life-changing.
This is history that we don't know. This is history that we've never been taught. This is history that's been censored in school. This is history that we must learn, and this is history that we can never forget.
A lot of youth violence doesn't start with youth itself. It starts with the people around them and what they're being taught.
In the past 5 years through this program, we have engaged with a whole host of young people, really focusing on how to help them understand what kinds of things are happening in the community and why, and then what they can do about that and how they can be involved in addressing some of those structural issues.
We can't do this by ourselves. We need everyone's collective energy to go ahead and tackle youth violence.
We're just at the tip of the iceberg, right? Like we've just gotten started, and we're seeing some of the results of what this campaign has brought awareness to. And because we chose to stand in some pretty difficult places, we've been able to say some pretty difficult things and have people digest it whether they wanted to or not. That has shifted some things in community for the better.
And in Louisville, people are talking about structural violence. The mayor's talking about systemic racism. We're seeing those changes, and that puts us in a place where I think the city is ready. We're at a tipping point to be able to now, okay, we're having these conversations and we've raised critical consciousness to a point that young people see what's going on and how it can change. Now we need to do it.